Hello, my name is Kristopher Chelini. Welcome to my podcast. Today we'll be talking about the risk relationship between variable and night shift work to occupational accidents, and we'll be focusing on the 3 Mile Island nuclear disaster. A little bit of background. On 4 a.m. Wednesday, March 28th, 1979, the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant had a partial meltdown, which released a large amount of radioactive material into the surrounding area and severely damaged the public confidence in the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, as well as the United States government. Many things went wrong that caused this issue, but we will be focusing on the fact that it happened very, very early in the morning during the night shift, and we will be discussing the industry risk, the time of shift, length of shift, biological clock, stress, boredom, and if anything has to do with the country of origin. So the night shift was performing some routine maintenance, trying to push some air through a filter and unclog a filter. And what happened is this pushed water into the system, and it tripped a sensor that made the computer think that there was water in the air system. So a lot of things happened. So what happened was either a mechanical or electrical failure that prevented the main feed water pumps from sending water to the steam generators and removing heat from the core. So the core immediately started to increase in temperature. They didn't know what was going on in the core. Their instruments were lying to them. A lot of things happened that went down. Eventually, they did end up getting water into the core. There was a buildup of hydrogen that could have caused a massive explosion. The situation could have been a lot worse. It could have been like Chernobyl in '86, but they managed to get a lid on it, and although some radioactive material was released, a considerable amount, they avoided a complete meltdown, which would lead to a China syndrome. A China syndrome is when the core actually gets so hot it melts through the earth into the water table, causing radioactive steam geysers to erupt for miles around, basically making the entire area uninhabitable for hundreds, perhaps thousands of years. So to unpack this, just talking about what is industry risk. So industry risk refers to the factors that can impact both positively and negatively a particular industry, which can in turn affect companies within the sector. So there would be particular industry risk. Obviously, the radioactivity, the fact that you're dealing with pounds and hundreds and tons of nuclear material in this case, that is extremely dangerous. That is the majority of the risk. You're also dealing with a massive amount of steam, high pressures, explosive gases. It's definitely a dangerous industry. What I've found is accidents tend to happen more often on the night shift and during shift work. If you listen to Dr. Huberman, who is a neuroscientist at Stanford, and he has a podcast called the Huberman Lab, and he talks about the neurology of the brain, how human beings are naturally diurnal. We are supposed to be awake during the day. So when you wake up and you view light with your eyes, you are starting your hormones. When you eat, you're starting a timer. Your entire body is on a timer. Your cognitive ability, it works better during the day. So at night, it can be very difficult, and you have a dip in hormones, you have a dip in cognitive ability, and that's just nature. And there are ways to trick it, but your risk does go up. What I found in a associations of shift work and its duration with work-related injury among electronics factory workers in South Korea. This article out of South Korea, they did a series of experiments and collected a lot of data, and what they found was current shift workers in the total population of men and women were associated with a 2.7 to 2.8 fold increase in risk of work-related injuries, respectively. And that was over several years. The time of the shift matters because your biological clock and your circadian rhythm, if you're doing shift, during the day, but if you're going, or even if you stick to doing your shift at night, if you work the graveyard shift, but if you're very disciplined about always going to bed at the same time and you keep your rhythm, even though it's not during the day, you'll be better off than if you're jumping around all the time. I remember when I was deployed in Iraq, we did a lot of night missions, but we did day missions too. And so switching back and forth was pretty difficult for some people. And usually you try to keep the people that are working at night, that's their job. The people that are working during the day, that's their job. You try not to go back and forth too much, but of course you got to do what you got to do. So I would think with the length of shift, the longer the shift, the more likely it is that a worker will make a mistake. And of course, another thing when I was overseas, when we were working these long shifts, when people would get hurt is because it was at the end of the shift. It's at the end of the shift when you're tired, you've been doing something for a long time, and that's when we would call it complacency. Don't get complacent is what we would always say, because when you get complacent, that's when people get hurt, because you think you've been here for 10 hours and nothing's happened. You start to lose your focus. You're tired. You're thinking about, you want to eat. You want to, take a shower. You want to get to bed. But so that definitely increases. And that goes with fatigue, with stress. Stress is a huge one. These guys in 3 Mile Island, they, I don't know how much stress they were in under normal conditions, but as soon as this event started kicking off, these guys were under a lot of stress. They didn't really know what was going on. Their phone was ringing off the hook. They had one phone line and it was constantly being tied up. Everybody was trying to get a hold of them. So the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the United States has some of the best nuclear power plants in the world, or at least at the time they did. And but even then, they were overconfident, maybe a little bit of hubris, and they nothing in their procedures covered what they were supposed to do at this event. It didn't really make any sense. At this point, a lot of shift work, especially, I don't know how much, if this would have happened at any other time during the day, it could have been bad luck, but based on statistical evidence, it is likely that the shift work had something to do with the 3 Mile Island incident. Thank you, and my references will be posted below.